hidden treasures of the 119th Psalm. Oh, we get to dig around, delighting in the fear of the Lord today in the Ayin section of the 119th Psalm. I mean, just absolutely spectacular to delight in the fear of the Lord, and I think you'll see that so clearly here, especially as we get God's vision. And the idea of the Ayin is obviously the eye, but it's also that of God's providence and God's vision. And the 127th verse is so connected to the 126th verse. I'm going to say them both in English so that you can get them. And there's a couple of therefores, and then so the idea of the therefore that Paul used so well, he may have gotten it from this psalm anyway, is that you need to know what the therefore is there for. So we're going to give you the 126th verse and then read the 127th in order to get that. So 126 that we studied last time, it is time for thee, Lord, to work, for they have made void thy law. 127, therefore I love thy commandments above gold, yea, above fine gold. Do you see the delight in the fear of the Lord? Well, it's just if, you go from the fear of the Lord to the delight of the fear of the Lord when you're catching God's vision. It's just absolutely beautiful that it's like the psalmist, King David, is like putting this on God. It's time for you to do something. For they're made void law. And he's trusting that he will because he's right. He's in the fear of the Lord. But then how cool when he delights in the fear of the Lord, he just sits back and goes, okay, therefore I love my part in this. Like, God, I know you're doing this work. How can I join in? And so he loves his part, which is to love thy commandments above gold and even above fine gold. It's a beautiful concept. And I can't help but just marvel at how he got there. Because usually when we are screaming, God, it's time for you to do something, we don't immediately go, now what's our role here? But that's exactly what he does. So you get back to this idea of, like, what are those commandments? And you can't help but think of, wow, love the Lord my God with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my strength. That's certainly worth more than gold and fine gold. And then love thy neighbor as thyself. In other words, how can I get out there if it's time for the Lord to work? Where is it, Lord, that I need to love on somebody as myself or more than myself, however that looks. And so, I made a note to myself this morning that God is extremely simple. This isn't hard. If something looks really complicated and all that, God's word is very simple so that even the most simple person can understand it. It's like God is going to do this, but then he gives us the dignity and the friendship of wanting us to take part in it, right? I mean, it's just like, man, when you love your kids, what do you want? They're coming to you, Dad, you got to do something. Well, let me get to work on it and let you help me, son. That's kind of like the idea here, which is just absolutely spectacular. So as you look into your own life, when was there a time that man, we're desperate. God, you got to do something. And all of a sudden it became very clear as God was doing it that he had you in mind. And so I'm going to relate a time that I'd never forget as long as I live. I had I do have this ministry that we work with called the Jesus Labor Love, where we help out single moms, widows, and families in crisis. And there was this time that, just to be completely transparent, I had the people on with Interstate Batteries, and they had assured me after I had them on my show that anytime I needed a battery for a single mom or something, just contact them. So I had an incident in Salt Lake City where I needed a battery, and I went to them, and they go, oh, well, we don't have anybody in that area, so you can't, we don't have any dealers that are not franchised, so, you need to wait till you find a situation that's, near, a corporate dealer. Okay. So their national headquarters is in Dallas. And so right the week before Christmas that year, I get a call from this poor lady, and she had wrecked her car, not realizing that when they put single coverage insurance on it, this is important to note, that if you let your insurance lapse and you owe money on your car and the bank puts single coverage insurance on it, that does not mean you're covered. What it means is if the car gets totaled, the bank is covered, but you're not. And so this poor lady had thought that since she had this single coverage insurance that she was covered, got in a wreck, owed money on this car, and it was in her driveway. She needed it in order to get to work, but it was undrivable because the fender was on the wheel and it also had crushed the battery. And so she described the situation to me. Here it was a week before Christmas. It might have been 2 weeks before Christmas at this point, because I immediately went to, Interstate Battery, their headquarters there. They'll give me a battery this time. And they turned me down. And I had this exact expression in my heart, like, Lord, it's time for you to do something. Like, these people, really? They got all this, they got all these resources, and I just need a battery. I mean, these people are huge, and I just need a battery. And as I'm screaming at God in this situation, and I can't help but think of this verse, it's time, Lord, to do something. And he says to me, well, Robbie, if you care so much about this woman, why don't you do something? And so I started to think about it. Well, we didn't have any money at that point. We went through that period in our life where we just didn't have any extra resources. But I thought, well, I can get this lady some help. I'll figure out how to do it. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to go, okay, Lord, I'm going to love your commandment. I know that I'm supposed to do something. So I started Googling body shops that were in her area, and I got the closest one that I could find to her house and just called it randomly out of the blue. Got this woman. I was like, ma'am, I'm with a Jesus Labor of Love. Could I speak to the owner? And she said, sure. And then she puts this man on the phone, and he gets on the phone, and I said, sir, I'm with the Jesus Labor of Love out of North Carolina, and we have a single mom in your area is in desperate need. And he goes, son, do you mean to tell me that you talk about Jesus Christ on the radio? I thought, oh, boy, I don't know where this is going. And based on that comment, and I said, well, yes, sir, I do. And he said, well, you can't outgive God. What does this woman need? I'll fix her car today. Well, having been in the body shop business, you don't just fix a car in a day usually. But this man, to his credit, this man went out to this woman's house, got the fender off the tire. I think he replaced the tire, if I'm not mistaken. Bought her a battery, had the car aligned so it would drive straight. Now, he didn't fix the fender and paint it and all that, but get this right. He got the car where this woman could get to work and get back to her life. And I've never, ever, obviously, forgotten this story, but it just kind of goes to me with this song. It's time for you to do something. Okay, son. Well, let's go. Let's go do something. And that's my idea of delighting in the fear of the Lord. When you get His vision, right? Then it's a delight to see He's going to work this out. He doesn't need me to get it worked out, but he loves to have me along, because if I hadn't been along, I'd have missed out on the adventure, right? So it's a beautiful thing. And I'm so excited. The Ian, such an amazing letter. And then we get more therefores. I'm pretty sure that Paul took a lesson right here in thereforeing, because if we talk tomorrow or the next episode, we will be thereforeing again. So we'll be back. Thank you for listening.